I'm curious, as you look back, if you were sitting in that, if you were a 20-year-old now sitting in a college class and could give yourself advice if you were living in today's world, what would you kind of coach yourself along or tell yourself?
Well, I would say don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid that there's not going to be a job. Don't be afraid that a computer is going to write music. And you brought up AI, and that's everybody's topic of conversation these days. I look at AI, and I've used it for different things, but to me, it's just making me create faster. It's taking the tedium out of some tasks. And I always think to myself, what do humans have over computers? And I already gave you the answer. We're human. And the human experience of enjoying it.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. My special guest is Kurt Bestor, a longtime person I have looked up to, a friend. Kurt is one of those almost Renaissance man type of people you've been doing this music thing forever, Kurt, it feels like. I mean, I remember going to your concerts back when I was in high school and junior high. And now, I mean, over the years, I don't even know how to introduce you, but I mean, you've got Grammy and all kinds of award stuff on there and cool collaboration.
I like Renaissance, man. I mean, I've been around since the Renaissance, so I guess that works.
Right. So, I mean, I would say Kurt, you're an innovator. And the funny thing is, the very first time I ran across your music was your Innovators CD. That's going to date both of us.
Well, that's 93, but I did my first album in 87.
Wow. So anyway, welcome to the show. I am excited. One of the crazy things is one of the reasons I am doing what I'm doing today is because of your time spent back in the 90s to share with some younger people like myself. I attended a kind of an event you were doing. I think there was maybe a dozen people in the room, and you talked about writing music. And I can still remember you sharing the story about your mom telling you to play a sunrise. And literally that story is one of those things that made me start writing music.
Well, it made me start writing music when she told me that story. So yeah, that was, Jason, I'm glad that you've continued on. You didn't have any hair back then either. So, looks like
I had a whole head of hair like you have, actually.
It's a cheap trick. No, it's, being a musician has all kinds of travails, but it also has some incredible blessings, for lack of a better word, that I don't regret choosing my career. I've done it now for over 4 decades. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I'll let you kind of just ask me what you think you want to know or what other people want to know. I've got things to say.
Well, let's go all the way back to kind of you as a kid. I'm thinking if we go back when you're sitting at the piano with your mom telling you to play a sunrise,
We
kind
can
of
go
talk
there.
about how you ended up where you are today. Just give us that whole story arc.
Sure. Well, my mom has that story, and I've told that story many times. So yeah, let me just, for people who haven't heard the story, I was really a chronic piano practicer. I hated to practice piano. Even to this day, I don't trust people that like to practice piano. I think they're weird. But I didn't want to play, and I was going to quit. I was going to quit piano, but my mom said, "Kurt, put your music away." I said, "What? I got to quit?" No. I want you to just play me a sunrise. She had seen me sit down at the piano, like probably you did, and other musicians. We just like to sit down and fiddle around. And she said, and she could see that was something that got me excited. And so she said, "Just play me what you think a sunrise sounds like." And after I kind of thought about it for a minute, I just played something, and it probably wasn't great, to be honest. Um, but in my mind, I thought, wow, it's okay to be a composer. It's okay. I don't like practicing Bach and Beethoven, but I certainly like composing Bestor. So that was the story from my mom's side. Now, my dad was actually genetically musical. His dad played trumpet in a big band back in the 1930s and 40s. My dad played trumpet and was a very good singer, trumpet player. Did a little bit of arranging for barbershop quartets, believe it or not. So when you combine my dad, who was also a coach, he was an athletic coach. And so he was the one that kind of cracked the whip. And then you've got my mom who's saying, play a sunrise. Put those two together, and and then nobody talked me out of it. That was the other thing. They let me just play a sunrise. My dad wanted me to practice and pick up trumpet later on, but nobody said, you probably ought to think about getting an accounting job so you don't starve to death. Nobody ever told me that. I don't know, maybe they should have, but no, I'm glad they didn't. But that's where and then as I grew up and I went to school, and I'm sure a lot of people listening can identify with this. That's kind of how I got attention. I would sit down and play piano, and I could see the girls kind of liked it, and the teacher thought it was cool that I played piano in class. And so oftentimes the teacher, I remember sixth grade, the teacher would say, "All right, everybody, pull out your books. We'll get Kurt to play some music while everybody kind of settles down and relaxes." So that was one of my first gigs. It didn't get me any money, but it probably got me an A. So that really is how I got into it genetically. And then I had very creative parents that could see that that I had a little something extra. You know, I don't like the word that people use to describe people who are talented. Certainly, we never want to use the term genius, but some people have a little natural ability. I think anybody can learn to play piano, anybody can learn to write music, but there are certain people that have a little something, just like a quarterback or anybody. Um, I think I kind of had that based on what my mom and dad say. And so put that all in a pot and cook it up, and you got a composer.
Well, and so as you were growing up there, when did you do start like putting music down on paper or thinking, oh, I can sell this, or was it doing gigs that you did? I mean, what was it that kind of got you from being a teenager to, oh my gosh, I can
Well,
make
the
music?
first song that I ever wrote down on paper was a song for a girl in seventh grade. Her name was Nancy, and I wrote a song and I put it down on music paper. I've got it somewhere. I have to remember where it is, but I called it Passantino. But that was the name of the music paper. Down at the bottom, it said Passantino, and I thought, well, that sounds like kind of a Andante or some sort of name. So I just called it that, and then I gave it to Nancy, and she didn't respond the way that I thought. I thought that I would be just this amazing thing, but I think it scared her a little bit. All the other boys were pulling her pigtails, and I was writing her a song. So that was seventh grade, and I got the flags wrong and backwards. I really started writing music down more seriously in high school, where I would write for the jazz band. I remember writing a song called, it was a jazz tune, kind of a funky jazz tune. One of them I called Funkin' Wagnalls. And then I wrote another one called to all beef patty special sauce, lettuce, cheese, picking bunions on a sesame seed bun or something like it was the McDonald. I just thought that'd be a cool title. But then I also wrote a song called Genesis for my high school band, and they played it in competition. And I kind of realized at that time that not a lot of high school kids were doing that. And I was getting experience. I mean, I don't know how long it took me. And today I could probably do it in a couple of days. But back then, I think it took me a long time. But I wrote it down by hand. There wasn't engraving software, it was all pencil and paper. And I wrote it down and wrote all the parts out, handed it to everybody, and they played it. So kudos to my band teacher. So it starts with my mom telling me to play Sunrise, then the girl, and then the band teacher. So my whole story is full of people like that kind of shepherded me to the next step. And I mean, there's something to be said there, I guess.
I thought that's so interesting. I look back and I had the piano teacher and the mom, but my in my senior year of high school, I'd been writing a little bit of stuff as well, and they had an AP music class,
Hmm.
and it was the first time anybody had explained chords like 1, 4, 5. And
Right.
one of the assignments was to go into like a hymn book and just like write out the chords. And I had just had this like mind blowing, oh my gosh, why did I not know this before? And, it's just me
Yeah.
like trying to listen.
It is
And
kind of, I have to say for me, I probably followed the same path. I did take music AP my senior year of high school, but I never really liked the technical side of music. That didn't resonate with me, except as it's usable to put down what I have in my head on paper.
yeah,
So I didn't really, I've never really loved theory like that. I just like the art of music, learning how to write things down. and you just can't, you know, to tech. We'll get into technology as we go on, but in those days, you know, it was tough. You had to write it down. It took a long time to write down on paper. And it was really tedious. I did a whole film score in 1987, 86, that everything was written out, you know, and there was no synthesized. Well, they had synthesized, but I couldn't do an orchestra. So I had to, you know, hire a little orchestra in the studio. Technology's been great, and it certainly allows us to get our art down a lot faster than it used to. But I'm older than you are, but you still probably remember those early days when it was a little more difficult to write stuff down.
I can still remember in high school, I mean, this would have been 95, 96, 97 when I was in high school, and it was a big deal that they'd gotten a computer in the music department that had Finale on it, and
Oh,
it was the old Windows 3.1 you'd click, and nobody could figure out how to use it, but they were excited they'd spent money on a license to be able to allow somebody to do it. I really don't think anybody ever did use it, but, yeah.
well, I've been using Finale since the first day, pretty much the first month it was out. And it started off with a Mac Classic. You
Yep.
know, I've been a Macintosh guy all these years, but it started off with a Mac Classic, Mac SE, super slow. And of course, now s- I want a new computer, but it's pretty speedy. So, yeah, that's kind of my, you know, that gets me up to high school. And after you know, up to that point, music had been kind of this attention getter for me. It was a passion. I loved it. I listened to lots of different music. I really didn't listen to a lot of rock music in those days. I listened to funk. I
Huh.
listened to jazz. I listened to classical, loved piano music, loved Baroque style music. Um, but I really and I didn't listen to a lot of pop music. I don't know why. That just didn't. I like it now, but I at the time I really didn't listen to it. But music was kind of it was just kind of in my life. It was who I was in high school. My senior year, all but one of my classes was a music class. I took jazz
Hmm.
band, a cappella, symphonic orchestra, symphonic band, chamber choir, and English. But anyway, when I finally, so the next step, if you'll allow me to continue, the next step for me was I got an opportunity. Now I'm out of high school. I'm going to Brigham Young University, where I was attending on a music scholarship, playing trumpet. And I got called to write music for a jingle library, a big, huge jingles. I don't know if people use that term anymore, but music for advertising. And I was with my friend and fellow composer Sam Carden, that some of your viewers will know. And he and I got asked to write hundreds of songs. So I dropped out of college to do that. Oh
Hmm.
man, I hang on. Jason, time out. I totally forgot one of the most important parts of my music upbringing. Holy crap. Hold on to the college thought. Back up to my junior year of high school. I'm at Orem High School. The My student teacher was a guy named Kenny Hodges. And Kenny was a percussionist for the Osmonds.
Hmm.
The Osmonds had a show down there. And I was trumpet player. He was my student teacher. And one day he said, "Hey, Kurt, our trumpet player got sick. Would you come and play trumpet in the recording studio?" I said, "Well, when is it?" He says, "Well, it's like 11 o'clock during the day." I said, "Well, I got school." He said, "Kurt, it's $40 an hour." I said, "Okay, I'll cut
Yeah.
class." So I went and played a recording studio with guys from Los Angeles, arrangers from there who had come to Provo where they had a studio, and I was recording music. I was in heaven. I mean, I thought I'd never really been in a recording studio. And I'm looking at not just a recording studio, this amazing recording studio with a SSL board, an engineer from LA, these players who were great. I was frightened, but was able to play third trumpet. And after that, they called me a couple times whenever they needed a third trumpet player. Then one day, Kenny said, "Hey, Kurt, you know, I know you write some music. Have you ever arranged music?" I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "Well, you take a song and you kind of do it, you know, your way." Um, what he really meant was, "Can you arrange some music for the Donnie Marie show?" and he said, "There's Dick Van Dyke's coming in. Would you be able to arrange a little 1.5 minute song for big band for Dick Van Dyke?" I mean, this stuff doesn't happen into one's life every day.
And
Um,
you're some nobody high school kid that you're like, you don't even
well,
know
I
that's a
mean,
big deal probably at that point, right?
I it was a big deal, but I will say I had some fetal position moments because I'd never written music for a big deal like that, and now I'm writing for alto sax, tenor sax, bari sax. What's the transpositions? And then chords. I kind of knew chords, but nothing like C og 7 or something. I just maybe knew C major 7, but anyway, I got it done. It got recorded. Sounded great. I must probably listen to it 100 times. It was just some dumb little song that Dick Van Dyke sang on the show. And so, all right, so that's high school. And that right there was the moment I knew I was going to do something in music. At the very same time, Jason, I watched the movie Jaws. It was my junior year in high school. And suddenly I'm listening to the music and I'm hearing bum, 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 and I'm thinking, "Man, somebody made music for right 2 notes." Um, yeah, it was more than that, but
Sure.
that's when I got introduced to John Williams, his music. I realized there was a job called film composing. So all of these things came crashing into my life at the same time, and I just thought, "Man, this is what I wanna do. This is what I wanna do." So that gets you up to high school, and then when I was in college, I'm taking the classes, and it was fine. I didn't really enjoy theory. Orchestration was interesting, but the way they did it in those days was a little like I had learned a more about orchestration doing that song for Dick Van Dyke than I
Yeah.
did going back and studying the history of, the crumb horn and all this. I think college was great, but I was on that fast track. So anyway, when I was in college, that now for those who were listening early, now we go back to the story. I was asked to write hundreds of jingles that could be used in a music production library, and so I left school and I did that, and that was arranging, composing on crack for a whole year. I did nothing but that. I didn't have a diploma. I got that later. BYU called and said, "Hey, we want to give you a diploma. What do you need to do?" And I said, "Well, now I'm a professional. Can you just waive that class?" So don't tell anybody, but they waived it. Okay, I got a diploma now. Anyway, Jason, so I'll stop and see if they have any questions up to that point. But that kind of gets you from early days till when I started professionally.
Well, and I guess as you've kind of lived through the evolution of film scoring, where almost nobody could do it because there wasn't the tools up
Right.
until now where we've got AI that seems to think it can, and it's
Well,
pretty amazing.
right.
We've kind of gone this whole gamut of, wow, all the in between. I'm curious, as you look back, if you were a 20-year-old now sitting in
Uh-huh.
a college class, and could give yourself advice if you were living in today's world, what would you kind of coach yourself along or tell yourself?
Well, I would say don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid that there's not going to be a job. Don't be afraid that a computer is going to write music. You brought up AI, and that's everybody's topic of conversation these days. I look at AI, and I've used it, for different things. But to me, it's just making me create faster. It's taking the tedium out of some tasks. Um, and I always think to myself, what do humans have over computers? And already gave you the answer. We're human. And the human experience of enjoying it, the human experience of sitting there writing music and going, wow, that mistake I just made, that's cool. I'm going to leave it in there. That
Mhm.
the human experience of going to a concert and reacting to music. I don't care what a computer can do with AI, it won't be going to the concert and enjoying it. So it's the human making of music it's changing, but it changed, when we went to computer writing music on computer, it changed. It changed when we started engraving music instead of using pencil and paper. It's a pretty big change, but I just look at AI. So anyway, don't be afraid. Just adapt. There will
Yeah.
always be a place for human beings in the human creation of music. That's
I
that's not really a lesson, more that's more like a little thing you put that's a like that's a mantra.
yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Well,
The
and
other
I
thing,
see.
Jason, the other thing sorry, I get excited when I have these things blast in my mind. I told you the story of my first writing experience being for Dick Van Dyke. Had I thought to myself, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready yet. Oh, I don't think I've learned enough yet. Oh, I don't have a business card. Oh, I don't," I just said yes and figured it out later. I know you live by that principle because I've seen how you work. You figure a lot of stuff after you've already said yes. But that's what I would say. Just be confident enough to be an opportunist, say, "Sure, I can score your film," and then figure it out how to do it.
Yeah.
It's scary, but like I said, don't be afraid.
Well, and I think the other thing is a lot of people look and say, "Well, I got to do this film score, but I got to be at John Williams level." And the thing is, no matter how good you are, you're not going to be, 50 years of experience doing that, and to expect yourself to do that. But just trying and putting in the work and trying to be as good as John Williams is going to push you to levels you didn't realize you even had capacity to do.
There's always somebody better. I mean, even John Williams probably looks up to some of the greats in history. And I still look at John Williams. He's still writing music. He's in a wheelchair now, which just happened in the last 6 months or so, but he's still writing music and he's 93. And I still look up to somebody like him. So be teachable. That, in other words, don't think you have reached a place where you're done. Well, I know
Yeah.
everything there is to know. There's always something, and even if you know how to write for every instrument and you know everything there is about technology, you can still be a better you. And I think that's the other thing I love about music is, you never learn. You never you're never done learning. So be inquisitive and don't be afraid of just being better. There is something that's I don't know who taught me this, but in the book that you and I are doing, we'll talk about that later, the music book that I'm a part of with
Yeah.
all the other composers. You asked me for a tune, and I chose something that goes way back to 1987. Now, most people would go, "Oh, wow, aren't you a lot better now?" I'm probably, but I'm not embarrassed by that piece. Um, but I do a song and then I move on to the next song. I don't go and spend all my time reworking a song and reworking it because I'm better and reworking it because I'm better. Even a song like Prayer of the Children was written 30 years ago. I could probably do something that would be a little easier for the voice in some regards, or maybe better for choir, but I did it, leave it alone and move on to the next piece. That's something that I think would be good advice.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. I so let's kind of go back again to you're finishing up with college. You've been doing a Christmas concert for I don't even know how many years. You may
38,
not even how
38
many years.
years,
38
38
years.
years.
38 years of a Christmas concert that's become I mean, it's a big deal. You're spending, what most people would consider a small fortune putting on just the most incredible concert,
Yeah,
and it's
so
not
not
something
even
AI
small
ever.
fortune anymore, but yeah, it's I didn't think when I started doing it that I would be doing Christmas concert. That wasn't my plan. And I think another piece of advice I would give to somebody is be adaptive. I don't do a lot of film composing anymore. At once upon a time, I thought that's all I was going to do. But then when everybody started doing it and the price went down because people could do it on their computers, it kind of lost its luster for me. Even John Williams the other day said, and I know it's going to shock everybody. He said, I'd never really considered film music great classical music. It's for a film. It has and I think everybody kind of went, "Oh my gosh," because we film composers would like to think that, "Oh yes, well someday we'll be the next Mozart." John Williams, and I'm not saying he's right, but that's his opinion. But I mean, I've been able so I did I did an album, a Christmas album, and I did that album in 1987 when I wrote it, 1988 it came out, and um, I did Christmas, and this is gonna sound like, this is gonna I don't know how this is gonna come across. I did Christmas because nobody knew who I was. So I did the Christmas concert because I thought, well, people love Christmas music. At the time, there wasn't a Christmas place in the music store. There wasn't a website to go find Christmas music. There was Mannheim Steamroller, who I liked. And then there were all these singers like, Johnny Mathis and different people that had Christmas albums. The Osmonds, I think, I don't know if they had, yeah, I think they may have done their Christmas album, but there wasn't like a big, huge thing of Christmas music. But I thought I like Christmas music. So I did
Mhm.
this album, and then somebody told me, well, you got to do a concert. You got to do a concert to promote your album. Oh, okay. Well, why don't we just book a Bravenel Hall? Which was pretty gutsy, probably stupid actually, but I don't know. It set me up to dream a little bigger, and that was the first concert. I did it with Sam Carden and Mike Dowdle. It wasn't a Kurt Bestor Christmas that first year. Little known fact. It was an Eris Christmas, which was the name of my first album, but those two guys shared a concert with me. And then the next year, I think Sam dropped out. Mike still was there. And then the year after that, I just kept doing it and then hired Mike as my guitar player, and he still plays at my concerts. But that was, it's a lot harder now. There's wall to wall y'all in the Christmas music world. It's,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's how it started. And I was an opportunist. Um, 38 years, long time.
Well, and I think, I mean, I don't know which year I ended up going to my first concert. I mean, I honestly think one of the very first big concerts I went to was with my mom going to watch your show at a Bravenel.
Yeah.
And I still remember you had this like weird digital thing that connected to a keyboard and you'd sing into the mic and sing your prayer of the children. And
Yeah.
I literally, I mean, it was just one of those cool new technology things that nobody seen with music. And all of a sudden, wow, I want one of those. And you probably sold more digital pianos for Yamaha and everybody else than you
I
realize.
they never gave me one, but I think you're right. Yeah, technology has always been a part of my world. To be honest, it's something that I've that's helped me. I bought that machine before I wrote Prayer of the Children, and
Hmm.
messing around with it is kind of what playing around with the machine is kind of what got me thinking of the song Prayer of the Children.
Yeah.
Because I could hear my voice, I was singing these multiple notes. It's a vocoder technology, and so I just dum da da da. I didn't even have words. I was just kind of messing around with this little kind of Celtic Gregorian chant thing, and then in the other room, CNN was talking about this war that had broken out in the Balkans, and so then I started writing the song about the children, and it was it wrote itself pretty quick. But technology is very good to inspire creativity, at
Yeah.
times.
Well, and with those concerts, I think, for somebody to even do 10 years in a row of a concert, I think as you look at, and evaluate what you've done over the years, a lot of the connection that people make, I mean, one, it's a tradition that people have come, but I think for any musician out there, the storytelling aspect
Yeah.
is absolutely critical. And I still remember, in the several shows I've been to over the years from you and others who are really good at what they do, they tell the story behind their song, or there's a meaning behind it. Like your prayer of the children you were sharing, there's something behind that. And yes, it's nice to listen to a really cool song, but all of a sudden when you can understand the how it came about or where it came from, it
It's
now
my
emotionally hooks.
style. I mean, I was listening this morning to Andrea Bocelli. He doesn't say anything in his concerts. He stands up and sings one song, then sings another song. He might say something briefly one time or two times in a concert, but it works for him.
Yeah.
I started talking in my concerts because, as you can tell, I'm kind of a blabbermouth anyway, but also I was writing instrumental music, and I wanted people to know. I wanted to paint the story for them so that they would know. I remember the very first one I ever did, did Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella, and it was all about going down on a toboggan in Wisconsin. And when you say that to people, then suddenly when they hear the song, they go, "Oh, I can feel it. Yeah, I can tell." That connects them to the music in a way that if I just played it, they might like it, but they wouldn't connect. We wouldn't meet at that place where where the story takes you.
Right. Well, and it's funny, my wife and I have differing opinions on going to concerts. She's one that just wants the artist to get up there and play the song and don't tell me anything, don't talk. And I'm the same way. I love to like share the story behind it and hey, this composer in 1600 was thinking this thing, or this person had just lost their son to World War One, and like to me, it just makes you feel the music different. And I don't know. I think that's so important. And I think that's one of you look at Taylor Swift, and I think that's honestly one of the reasons she's been, I mean, she's amazing, but
Yeah.
she tells stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that my style is right for everybody. There may be people who go, "Wow, man, Bester talks a lot." But I've also heard from people that like to come to my concerts. They say, "Oh, don't, you're kind of funny, you're self-deprecating. We feel like we're in your front room," which is exactly what I want them to feel.
Yeah. And I think from a fan base for any artist out there, whether you're young, old, I think having those fans that feel like they're connected to you and that feel like they are in your living room, and that
Right.
they know Kurt well enough that they're sitting on his couch and he's just playing them a song, like that's what gets people to stick around long term.
I think that, being a musician on stage, you can get this even if you're not on stage, but especially when you're on stage and you're playing something that you wrote that's very special to you. It's very vulnerable. And you're and then you wonder whether people will like it. It's a vulnerable place to be. So if I can make people feel comfortable, it makes me feel comfortable. I can trust the audience, they trust me, and it's a much more friendly music experience. I always enjoyed classical conductors when they would turn around once in a while and say something about a piece, but that's like that's a no-no. Your conductors aren't supposed to talk. Well, Bernstein did, and I think that's one of the reasons why people related to him.
Well, and I look even at myself as a young person in the audience when somebody explains, "Hey, there's this flugelhorn," or "Listen to the second, these violins are going to do this really cool thing," or there's some weird. I still remember one of your Christmas shows. You had these bells, like tube bells thing that people were playing to start the concert, and I like as a musician, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool!" Just to going into it, and if it's almost like you're able to teach,
Yeah.
and when you learn what's happening in the music, you appreciate it and you enjoy it more.
Well, live concerts and first of all, I'm one of the few guys left in the world that plays a totally live concert. There's no click track, there's nothing on tape. I'm just playing music with and going faster, slower each night. So for me, you come to a concert, maybe you're looking at my drummer. Maybe you're looking at my percussion guy because he's got all that percussion stuff. Maybe you're looking at Darren Bradford, who's playing all these instruments. Maybe you're looking at Mike Dowdle and thinking, man, what a cool set of guitars he has. It's a visual experience, it's an audio experience, it's looking around and seeing other people kind of respond to the music. It's live music, and I think that now especially, nobody's making money selling you can, but nobody's making tons of money selling audio.
Right.
Unless you're Taylor Swift or somebody like that. Um, but people are making money playing live.
Yep.
It cycles. I mean, when I was growing up, the concerts weren't very expensive because they wanted you to buy the CD or the LP. Then it changed around till now because of Spotify and streaming. They can just listen to anything on YouTube or wherever, but they can only come to a live concert. And so people are spending a lot more money, too much in my estimation, but a lot more money on a live concert experience.
Yeah. Well, and then you throw all the ticket servicing fees that all happen in there, and you just
Yeah,
like,
don't get me started on that. I hate that stuff. That drives me nuts. Those middle
and
those guys in the
we have
middle.
no control over them either. It's just one of those like they're just going to charge more than the artist even makes. It feels like most days. So
Well, it's a business, and business is always going there's always going to be people in there trying to find between the artist and the final listener, there's tons of people. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes they do good things for you. Sometimes they promote
Yeah.
your music. Sometimes they, but then there are some of those like kind of the guys hiding in the dark shadows. Those are the guys that drive me nuts. But it's all part. It's change. It'll change too. It'll change.
Oh, for
Music.
sure. So as you look back over the years, I mean, one of the things I've heard a lot of musicians get, I don't know what to call it, defensive or just funny about is they'll say, I just want to play my music and I don't want to do the business side. And as you look at, I mean, you've seen a lot of musicians come and go, and you've
Yeah.
seen people succeed, whether that's monetarily or just happy to play the music. What what do you tell people when they're like, oh, I don't want to make it a business, you know?
Well, then you don't want to really do music. Then go make some money selling something else. If you want to do music full time, then you have to think of it as a business. Now, I'm not the best businessman in music. I have had a company. I did back when I was selling CDs. It was quite lucrative, but I've had a harder time kind of staying on top because I'm really, really busy at arranging. I mean, every day I keep thinking, oh, I need to get on social media. I need to do this, do that. And I try really hard, but it's frustrating. But so my advice to anybody, if you want to do music full time, you've got to figure out a way to make it make sense financially. I mean, that's just the reality. Now, there are people that you can trust to do that. And I think one of the mistakes I have made, perhaps one of the reasons why maybe I'm not as financially as successful as others, is that I haven't always trusted other people to do it because I've been penny wise and pound foolish. It's like, oh, I got to pay that money. I don't know I don't have that much money. How am I going to do it? Whereas I should have said, oh, if I do this, it's going to make me a lot of money. Now that you have to trust those people that are going to distribute your music or are going to promote you, are going to do this or that and everything else. But my advice too is the world of AI can help you tremendously with that. Jason, you've taught me some things about that really, I mean, kind of the sky's the limit in some of this areas. So be as creative in your music finances as you are with your music writing. You, you
Yeah.
have it in you to do it, or trust somebody. Trust somebody. That's the other thing.
But and I see a lot of artists that, I mean, they'll go spend a bunch of money on a fancy new guitar, or I mean, some of us spend stupid amounts of money on new pianos, right?
Software.
I mean, you look at when people are young, they'll go spend crazy amounts of money on their education. Go to some university to teach you how to do that, and and then it's somehow when you graduate, it just seems like somehow in that early stage they quit doing lessons, or they quit investing in themselves and think, oh,
Right.
I've passed, I've got the badge or the thing on my wall that says I now know something, and then they stop investing. And I look at my trajectory, and I have spent l- crazy amounts of money on lots of things. I've tried a lot of things, throwing stuff against the wall, and the reality is a lot of those things don't work out. But the one thing that did, if I wasn't trying, 10 different things and having one of them stick, I would have never gotten to the one that stuck, at
Yeah, and
all.
you're a kind of a rare combination of someone who's creative in music, but also has some creative ideas in the financial world, and that's a rare thing. But and I think it's to your credit. But you said something there, and that I'm going to combine with what I said earlier. Don't be afraid. You know, you can't be afraid and create. When you create music, you can't be afraid that somebody's not going to like it. You can't. I remember writing music with Sam Carden, and collaborating is actually essential in music. Very few people can make music. I would venture a guess nobody can make music, market music, do the whole thing by themselves. I don't care if you're playing solo piano, you record it yourself, you market it yourself, you're still using tools on the internet that somebody else did. But
Yep.
in most people's world, especially in mine, I have to rely and I get to rely on musicians to play my music. I rely on an orchestra on stage to play the sound guy to make it sound good. I rely on people to push my music. Somebody like you, Jason, or we're doing some of the sheet music stuff together. I rely, we're collaborating. And I think there's something about music that's totally reliant, and thank goodness, on collaboration. Don't That's not a bad thing. That's going to make your pie bigger, not make you lose more pieces of your pie.
Right. Well, I look back, one of my very first recording experiences was at Chuck Myers' studio in,
Yeah.
Sandy, and, I mean, Chuck's one of those amazing, amazing guys. I know he's done a lot of stuff over the years with you as well, good
Yep.
friend of yours, but he I was recording, I think it was probably my first album, and, that was a big deal. It was a huge investment on my part. I mean, it was like a sixth of what I'd earned during the year working at a full-time job in a
Right.
bank,
Right.
and he told me, he says, "Look, you are most people need to write at least 100 songs before they have one song be good." And he says, "Don't like feel bad if any of these 10 songs or whatever number of songs we were doing, they're going to be, you give every one of them all you got and you make them great and you do what you can, but you're going to need to most normal people have to do at least 100 songs before they get one that's actually pretty good."
And
And
that comes from, and I appreciate Chuck. He's really he's a very collaborative, good creative guy. That is kind of the formula for someone in the pop world. I would say just write music, even if it's your mom that you play it for. That's your audience. Play it for your kids, play it for your wife, play it for your friends. Go play it in a coffee shop. Don't look at Taylor Swift and say, I got to get that good before I let anybody listen to my music. Again, I've been saying, don't be afraid this whole interview. Just go out and let one person or a few people listen to it. And then don't sit on the song and go, "Oh, well, somebody responded this way. Maybe I'll rework it. I'll rework it." I take that offering, put it aside, and start your next piece.
yep,
And just learn. I learn things from musicians all the time. I'm still learning about string. I'm not a violinist, but I'm learning about string crossings, fingering, bowings. It's a very difficult part of the music business to understand, and I think I'm getting there. But I mean, I'm ancient of days, and I'm still in school, and that's
yeah.
okay. I'm getting a graduate degree.
Well, the one of the big takeaways when Chuck told me that, you got to do 100 is he basically encouraged me to keep writing and sharing just like
Right.
you said, but I applied that to the marketing side and thought, you know what? If I'm going to invest in doing 100 songs, I need to also invest in 100 different ways to market or share my music, whether
Yeah.
that's doing free house concerts or whether it's paying. I mean, back when Facebook first came out, I was spending, one penny would get me like 100,000 views on Facebook when, you wouldn't sell anything at the point, but it's one of those where I think I've just really tried to apply trying something new and investing in something new, whether that's education courses,
Right.
you know, or, because you are always learning.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Be
you're not going to be
teachable.
successful.
Be teachable. Use your creativity in every aspect, from writing it to marketing it to collecting the money, to use it. I mean, just be creative. That's what I love. The people that are watching this are most likely all creative people. I would venture to say that every one of us, musician or not, has the ability to create, to make things better, whether it's, I don't know how you do that if you're an insurance salesman, but I'm sure they can do it too. But everybody can be creative, and that's how we make progress. That's why we're not writing Gregorian chant anymore, because somebody said, "Hey, what if we did two notes? Hey, in the Impressionist era, what if we put in a seventh or a ninth or an 11th? Hey, what if we put a drum beat with that?" And little by little, the Beatles, when they were doing their album, they were trying stuff, trying things that were pushing forward, which
Yep.
is something that AI won't be able to do. AI can't say, "Hey, let's try something in the future." It can only go backwards and do the best of what it can gather from its trillions of ones and zeros, which is cool, but we humans have to push things forward.
Well, Kurt, I know we're getting close on time, but I want to just have you maybe even just share a little bit of What's it been like to collaborate with some of these really big name people? I mean, you've had people at your concerts. I know with your Christmas show, you've got some amazing people coming. You got Alex Sharp from Celtic Woman and Murray.
Mairead, I'll say the name, it's hard to say. Mairead, who's from Ireland. You know, over the years, I used to, starting with Dick Van Dyke when I was in high school, I've always collaborated with artists. I've had amazing people play my music. A guitar player like Grant Geisman. I've written music for Andrea Bocelli.
Yep.
I'll tell you what's cool about writing with people that are at a high level. When you're early in your career, you don't have enough money to pay for the world's greatest sax player. So you get some friend who's pretty good, but it just doesn't sound quite like it does in your brain. When you work with people that I get a chance to work with, Jenny Oaks Baker, Caroline Campbell, and some of these great musicians, Andre Bocelli, they are taking your notes beyond what you thought you could do. And when I'm in the studio working with a great group of musicians like I do here where I live in Salt Lake City, or when I've gone to Prague and other places, they're the top of their craft. Your music sounds even better than it did in your mind. And that's a drug that I never get tired of. Um, I know that not everybody can do that. And it took a long time to get to the point where I could do the kind of work where I could afford somebody else to pay me to go into the studio. But that's what you get when you work with great people. So if you're doing an album and you need a guitar player, maybe you get a little extra money and get one of those guitar players that can take your music beyond, or at least to where you thought it was, and maybe even beyond.
Yeah. Yeah. So last question for you. So what, as you look back, I'm sure this definition has changed over time, but what would you consider, what would you call a successful musician to you?
Ugh. It kind of stumped me on that. I mean, everything I say is going to sound goofy. Um, well, music is not the way I make a living. So I'm not going to judge being successful by the amount of money in my bank account. I mean, I'd like to have a little bit more, but that's not how I judge. The purest way that I judge is if I can write something and the people that receive it um love it, or are moved by it, or dance to it, or something. When the listener of my music their day is better because they heard that piece of music. They come to my Christmas concert and they go, I feel so much better because of it. It sounds goofy. It sounds like I'm in church or something, but honestly, that to me is it's communication. Music, and I know I talk a lot, Jason, but I am a better communicator without words than with words. And I do that with music. So when I want to communicate something so important, Prayer of the Children is a communication about peace. I wrote 30 years ago, I wrote it, but one could use it to describe the children in Gaza now, for example. One could use, or the Ukrainians. My message that I wanted to portray went out in music form, it's much more powerful than what I could say with my mouth. And so that to me is a success. It may not be a successful career, but that song is a successful moment. And my career is just lots of successful moments for 40 plus years. And hopefully, I couldn't say 40 more, but a few more decades. I'll take a couple more decades.
Well, and I think the beauty of it is you keep showing up. I think that's what matters. You talked about John Williams being in a wheelchair. There was a Disney documentary. I don't know if you've seen that or
I
not.
saw it, a great documentary.
Oh, I loved it. And it made me
Composed by John Williams. You
Yep.
got to watch it, everybody.
Go watch it. But I one of my big takeaways there is that every day he sits down at the piano and he writes out music still to this day. And you just think, okay, if you really did spend 90 years or however many years he's been able to play piano or whatever he does, how good would you really be if you'd spent 90 years times, 350 some odd days a year? That's amazing.
If you're like me, Jason, and I bet you are, right down below me here is my keyboard. I've got other keyboards here too. I'm surrounded by
Yep.
keyboards, but it's when I'm feeling stressed out, I come down here. When I'm feeling happy, I come down here. Music is just it's a safe place for me to be. It's the place that almost everything emanates from. I don't know. Don't talk to my wife. She might say, yeah, it's kind of obnoxious because he's always down there. But it's just the fact that I make a living at it is a necessity. The fact that I do it is just who I am.
Yeah. And I think that's the true definition of success is like finding who you are
Yeah.
and being good with it and just, getting better and better at your craft every day to
Yep.
impact people. So, wow.
I like to say better
Kurt,
and bester, Jason. Getting better and bester every day.
Bester, there you go. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for sharing. I think there's some real gold nuggets that I think you've shared, and my hope is that maybe we'll inspire the next one that's coming along, like I was back 20, 30 years ago, and that would be amazing.
They're all coming. They keep coming, and thank goodness.
And hopefully they'll surpass us and be it'll be fun to look back when we're 90 years old and be like, wow,
No,
that's
no,
awesome.
don't surpass me. I don't want anybody to surpass me.
Awesome. So, Kurt, if people want to, if you're out in Utah, you've got to come to your Christmas show. If people want to find out about your music or your Christmas shows, where's the best place for them to go?
KurtBestor.com. That's the easiest way. Just look for me there. All the socials. Not as much TikTok. I don't dance around, but you can find me. KurtBestor.com. It's easy.
Awesome. Well, Kurt, thank you so much, and thanks for taking your time to share with others.
All right. Cheers.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.